So like I said, now we're going to look at what happens when an angle is formed outside the circle or in the exterior. So what this would look like is this. So it can happen in three ways. You either have two secants, so two lines that go completely through the circle, but notice again, our angle is outside. You can have one secant and one tangent, or you can have two tangents. In all three of these pictures, what you should see is that all three of them have an angle X, and then all three of them have two arcs that are labeled M and N, very much like the last video where those were the two arcs out sort of either side. M and N in this case are the two arcs that are inside the angle you are trying to find. So there's one that's closer to the angle, there's one that's further away. The one that's further away will always be bigger than the one that is closer to the angle, okay? In order to find that angle measure, the measure is 1/2 the positive difference of the intercepted arcs. Really, all that means is do big arc minus little arc. So the setup for all three of these is actually the same. So I did put it underneath each picture just to sort of prove that to you. In each one of these, I'm going to do x equals 1/2 m minus n, or x equals 1/2 big arc minus little arc. In all three pictures, m is further away, making it the big arc, n is closer to, making it the little arc. And that's what you want to do anytime your angle is outside of your circle. So let's take a look at a couple examples. So here we have our x as our angle. We've got two secants, so we have our two arcs. And so my setup should just be that my x is equal to 1/2, and then big arc minus little arc, so 120 minus 50. So 120 minus 50 makes 70. And 1/2 of 70 means x is 35. And so that's all we need to do. If we look at another one, here we have x, we have our arc, and we have another arc that's empty, and then we have this 150 below. And so this is a case where if I want to do big arc minus little arc, you want to make sure that you are taking the arcs that are inside your angle. Think about this angle closing and eating this like an alligator or a Pac-Man, right? This is the arc that I need, not this 150 below. So what we have to think of is, well, how big are circles and how can I find the part that's missing here? So first thing, 150 plus 70 is going to equal 220, okay? So that's how much of the circle I know, and I'm trying to find that missing piece. So if a whole circle is 360 and I subtract the 220, that leaves me with 140. So this missing piece over here is 140. So I want to fill that in. That way, when I go to find my angle, x is going to be 1/2 and big arc is 140, little arc is 70. So we're looking at 140 minus 70, which is 70, and 1/2 of 70 is 35. It's just a coincidence. Numbers sort of worked out the same. Obviously, there can be any value, but we happen to get 35 again. Okay. And so if we look at one more, I've got my angle this time, which is given to me at 47. They've labeled this arc as X, and then I again have an arc that's empty. What you do want to consider here is that you do have a tangent. So I'm just going to sort of highlight. Remember, these are here is like singular points. So the reality is I'm essentially using the whole circle here. This much of the circle is X. This would be the rest of the circle. So if I think about a circle being, say, 360 degrees, 360 degrees minus the X that's already labeled would go here. If I know what x is, let's say x was 300. Well, 360 minus 300 would tell me the missing part was 60. So if I can find what x is, I can immediately subtract from 360 and get that interior arc. It's also okay that x is part of the arcs and not the angle. The key, though, is making sure your setup is always the same. The angle, in this case 47, equals 1/2. The big arc is x minus, and I'm going to use parentheses here, the little arc, which is 360, oops, there we go, minus x. Okay, so we need to simplify this a little bit. So this is still angle equals 1/2, big arc minus little arc. Now it's our algebra skills. So my first algebra skill I'm going to do here is let's multiply by 2. Let's get rid of this fraction. Let's make life easier, right? So 47 times 2, that's going to give me 94. Inside here, I still have my x. Think of this as being a -1, right? That technically goes to both things on the inside. So like -1 times 360 would be a -360, but a -1 times a -1x would actually make that a positive x. So what happens is now that I've properly sort of simplified those parentheses, x and x is going to make 2x minus 360. Okay, so it's really important to be careful of the signs, or you might accidentally have your x disappear and then you won't have anything left to solve for. So to finish this off, we're just going to add our 360. That's going to make 454 equal to 2x. And so divide by 2. And in this case, 227 would be x.